name is Sonia Josephson. I am the program coordinator at the Aquinnah Library, and I'm so excited to be a part of this beautiful gathering of, some special, creative people from our island, not just in the panel, but also in the audience. And I wanted to start this by opening with the first line in the foreword of Vineyard Folk, which is, "As long as this island sits in the sea, chances are artists will always be called to discover its secrets." So I think, even just that line says so much about what you get to dive in as you open this book, but also with each conversation you have with a person on the vineyard. So today we are joined by Tamara Weiss, who is one of our creative folks, but also was a big part of creating this book and bringing these people together. Tamara is a film producer, author, designer, and one of our vineyarders here. We have Elizabeth Cecil, photographer. We've got Michael Johnson, artist, photographer, as well as Brooke Adams, actor, painter, and Brad Silverling, writer and director. And lastly, we have one last special guest who's going to be our moderator today for this panel. So we are joined by Ilana Levine, who is an actress, but also host of Little Known Facts, a podcast, which you should definitely check out. And she interviews some of today's most successful artists on that podcast. So welcome everyone, and come on in. And I'll pass it on to Ilana.
Hi, come grab a seat. Welcome everybody. We're waiting on Julie Vanderhoop. Hopefully she's probably cooking up something extraordinary for us to eat. So yeah, I hope so too. Or we'll all go to our orange peel when we're done here and see what's in the oven. But first of all, I just wanted to say welcome. I'm so incredibly honored to be here and to have the opportunity to talk to all of you extraordinary artists. And I have been coming to this island with my family for 20 years. I could cry when I think of the number of days we spent at the Aquinnah Library across the street, which really was our home away from home, not just on rainy days. So the fact that I'm even a small part of something your incredible library is doing is really an honor for me today. And I just want to thank Tamara before we begin, because whether you live up island or down island, Tamara is the great connector. I've never met anyone who doesn't know who she is and have just some incredible story about an introduction she made to somebody else turned into probably my podcast is because of you somehow, and I don't even know it, except many of my incredible guests are because of you, some of whom are in this audience today, right now, Tony, Dominic, and others.
Welcome, Julie.
Yay! We were literally just talking about your gloriousness, and here you are. You would have been embarrassed, so it's good that you're a few minutes late. Vineyard Folk, for those of you who've already read it, you know this. For those of you who are going to get it at the end of this talk, is really a testament to the unbelievable creativity that lives on this island. And as all of you know, I think this island is 20 miles long, maybe, and the idea like that per square inch, the number of brilliant creatives that you find. And so today, many of you who are in the audience, we're just going to talk about what is it about this magical place, not just the fact that it's beautiful, but its history and its legacy that has something in the air that just inspires such incredible creativity. So all of you have a different origin story in terms of how you came to be a part of the Martha's Vineyard, not just Aquinnah Community. But I feel like since you're here, are you settled now? Are you ready? I mean,
Start with you.
Julie Vanderhoop, I mean, truly I could say this about everyone. I see community when I look at each one of you and sort of where your heart is in your art. But if you don't mind my starting with you, I'd love for you to just talk a little bit about, and this can be kind of stream of consciousness because you have been asked this question before, but when I ask you, tell me about Martha's Vineyard and what MV is for you, Aquinnah, Gayhead, that curtain behind you, what sort of comes to mind today on this Thursday?
Well, I can only say that I start my day with a particular blessing most days, and it, well, as most people like to hear it, I've got it written next to my bedside table.
I think we need to speak loudly because we're not holding a
Right.
mic, and some people have
I was
requested
gonna say,
louder.
you guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
Speak into the water bottle.
Sorry, I've been running. So it says, Manat wana ni kahuna chik. Mosakwi tama hani wanikak unach. And that is, Creator and ancestors, help me to hold tight to what is good. Let it be. That was a simple phrase, and I've said it for a long, long time. I don't know how long, but something that I often say over our table. It's written there on a little card, or for me, this land, Martha's Vineyard, not just Martha's Vineyard, but Boston to the Narragansett River to Provincetown, Martha's Vineyard, and Nantucket are the territorial homeland of my ancestors. And coming here and remaining here, or being able to be here for any period of time, is profound for me in the way that I feel like no place else in the world. It grounds me. I have memories. My children have been brought back here, and when they travel the world, and they've been honored in many places in far, far away, like the Maori homelands in New Zealand. And when they came back here, they knew, my son actually wrote me a book, that we have the same thing. This mana is in our land, it's in the water that we drink, it's in the food that we grow. And when we see the sunsets and the magnificence of this place, we know that this is just like any other great place in the world, which there are all too few of. And it is from the ancestors' energy in the ground that we have witnessed many, blessings. Every day is a blessing. So knowing where you are from allows our children to understand and ground themselves in a world where often you cannot find how to ground yourself. Where is it coming from? How do you stick your hands in the earth and feel the warmth or the cold of it at any part of the season? I try to answer that question a lot.
Yeah.
To try and bring an understanding to people that are out here. And that's one of the reasons why I built what I did, was so that my people would get visibility. And I could say that we are still here to many people, and not just welcome them to Aquinnah, but welcome them to my territory and announce who we are as a generation that had started to speak so that people could hear us rather than being hidden. The generations before me, and now the generation after is bringing the language. I just read the language, but they speak it wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
And these are it's such a marker. For my people, we're at only 1,600. How do we have a voice in this world?
Right.
It's a question every day. So.
Well, all of you are going to, all of your work is featured in this book, and Orange Peel, when you talk about what you've built, that is a place, when I think about community and all of the things, not just the food you make there, but sort of the happenings that you create there. It's so much more. It actually reminds me, when I think of Midnight Farm, Tamara's store, all of you remember that. It wasn't just a store, it was a community, it was a salon, it was a place to gather. I have met so many lifelong friends at your store, and I feel like Orange Peel has that too. It's so much more than a place to make pizza, right?
I think that for Aquinnah, that's really what I grew up with, the community and people gathering. We'd gather at Aquinnah Circle, we'd gather at potlucks, we'd gather together, and that was never broken down. There were no real walls. It was very, very community oriented, and after living many other places in the world, I just don't have, I was at an affordable housing groundbreaking, so that
just now,
made me
right?
Yes. Creating affordable housing to keep this community alive without worry about where our taxes are going, but I'm more concerned with the community. How can we have a community if we only build big houses which aren't lived in? I want a community here, so I bring arts and the creativity to the generations behind me, for those who can not travel. But we need to be creative, and we need to understand how beautiful it is to just be here and to be able to create and bring the artist community back.
Well, to that point,
I think we can all go home now.
I mean, so thank you all for coming. I feel like
on par like she does all the time.
I'm so sorry, you guys. I had Julie go first because I really don't know how you could possibly. But you will, because each of you brings something so uniquely glorious to your work, to this island, and the people who get to appreciate what you do. I want to go to this side of the table for a second, because the two of you have created the book that you did all the photographs, but I just want to go back to sort of, how did this come about? Vineyard Folk, that you were going to shoot these incredible artists in their natural habitats, as it were, and you, who is such a connector, kind of deciding, I want to create something to celebrate these beautiful people. Can you go back in time a little bit and start us off with that?
What Julie just said about the big houses.
Yeah.
This is a particular community. A lot of you are part of it, not just here in Aquinnah, but on the island. And we are at risk of losing our creative and artistic friends that are here. And I think my co-author is Amanda Benchley. Elizabeth Cecil is the photographer in the book. And she mentioned to me one day that I just knew all these creative people, and why were all my friends artists, and why were they poets and writers and community leaders? And I said, because those are the people that live here, and those are my friends, and maybe it's time to celebrate and shine a light on this unusual group of people who live on this island, who get inspiration from this land. And we started thinking about why that is, and the future generations was definitely of interest to me. I didn't really want to make a book that was going to just say, this is where these people are, and these are their houses, and these are their studios. It had to have a little more substance, so we decided to interview everybody. I think that this group that's assembled right here is really interesting, because you were saying who came before. Brooke, who is a painter and an actress, this might be a great time for her to speak about some of the painters that were here before you started painting on the vineyard. And one of the things that I love that you've done in the last year is Brooke has painted portraits of everyone from Lee, the postmaster in Chilmark that she sees every day, to friends of hers. And I mean, I'll just let you speak to that, but it's not just the painting, because you've used this island as your muse for some acting as well.
Yeah, well, the people here are so special. I know and love more people here than any place else that I mean, in New York, where I grew up, I don't have nearly as many people that I love, and Los Angeles, where I lived for the last 30 years, I didn't have a lot of, I mean, it's just, this is the place where everyone I love lives. So, yeah, I mean, I was particularly thrilled. I did a painting of Alan Whiting, who you all know who he is, and his wife secretly bought it for him from the gallery that we did with Kara. And then I did a painting of Lynn, his wife, and Alan bought it secretly, so.
You thought you were on to something?
Yeah, I also love the community of artists because there doesn't seem to be any kind of competition. It's like one person's success is everybody's success. That's the way it feels anyway. Everybody's always giving each other tips about what they're doing, and some of the people who've inspired me, well, Thomas Hart Benton, I love him, his work, and the red cap, what's his name, who inspired me to do the portrait show? Stanley Murphy, and his studio is now where Kara Taylor has her gallery, where I did my portrait show with a couple of other artists, and so it was kind of perfect because it was those paintings that he did that inspired me to do this, to do that, and. I've been here for 2 months, and I probably paint every day for like 8 hours. It just feels so right to be here and to be doing things and then seeing people, and it's just such a nice combination of art and life and people.
Do you remember the first time you came to Martha's Vineyard?
I came with a boyfriend probably 55 years ago. We camped out. I had found a little baby squirrel in my backyard that the mother had thrown the squirrel out of the nest, and I brought the squirrel with us to camp out with us, and I had him in a kind of beautiful French bird cage, and we hung him in the trees wherever we camped out. And the last day we were here, I left him in the car for too long and went into the store, and when I came out, he was baked.
Brooke,
sorry.
I didn't know it would be like a triggering story for people.
His name was
Yes,
Chester.
You do remember.
We buried him in Chappaquiddick. It's true. I'm over that now, but and then for very many years, starting like 35, 40 years ago, when I first met Tamara, I used to come with a friend of mine, Pam, and we would come for 2 weeks usually and rent a place. And I was just thinking about it today. I almost don't go to the beach anymore. We go to Lambert's Cove in the morning because of my dog. And then I don't go to the beach anymore. And when Pam and I were coming, we would just spend the whole day at the beach. That's what we did. Beach and then cook at night. And that's when I first fell in love with this place.
Well, you're sitting next to someone whose photographs of this place are some of the most beautiful photographs ever, but also particularly capture the light, the people, the landscape. Michael's photograph called Joy, I had a tote bag with that photograph on it before I even knew the history of that photograph. So you are known for so many things, but it's fair to say that has become a truly iconic photo and something that you're very known by, but there's so much more. So I wonder, I would love to hear the story of that photograph. I'm sure you've been asked many times, but
a couple.
I've never been able to hear it from you directly.
Yes.
And also like your origin story, coming to this island and finding it as a muse for you and your relationship to photography here. And if you could just share a little bit about how you became a such a vital part of this creative community.
Well, thank you. And my first experience here, like Brooks, was a camping experience as well. Tamara's soul sister, Willa's parents, Willa Shallett's parents, had land on T Lane. And I was living in a little town called Leonia, New Jersey. And so we had, it was 1974, we have our crew of so-called hippies hanging out in the park there, trying to be hippies, but we were just suburban kids with hippie dreams. One day a friend of mine came running up breathless. He's like, I'm like, what's going on? He's like, we're all going to Martha's Vineyard. I'm like, where's Martha's Vineyard? He said, I don't know, but we're all going. I'm like, I'm going too. So we came up with about 6 to 8 carloads of people from Brooklyn and New Jersey and camped out on their land for about 10 days. And that was my first vineyard experience. And basically, we had our little campsite there. We went to Lucy, which was called Jungle Beach there. We went to Gay Head Beach. And we went home. And so that was all I knew of it. And then in subsequent summers, Willa would rent a house. And again, all of her friends would converge on the house. And we would go to the beach, party at the house, and go home. So I had no real experience of it other than the vacationist experience. In 1981, it just hit me that I wanted to take a video production course. It just came into my mind. As I always tell people, God spoke to me in my ear and I listened to him. So I went and took that course. Subsequently, I borrowed $350 from my dad to buy my first 35 millimeter camera because it wasn't about buying a whole video setup because those were very expensive at that time. You couldn't just do it on your phone as you can now. And it just struck me, excuse me, that I hadn't been to the vineyard in a long time. So I said, why don't I just take my camera and go up to Martha's Vineyard for a few days? So I called Willa and I said, well, where should I stay? And it was off season. So she said, well, Oak Bluffs is the only place where things are happening. So Oak Bluffs. So I made a few phone calls, found a place there, which was called the Captain's House then. It was next to Betancourt's garage, and booked 9 days there. And it was my first time here by myself, my first time in real off-season, and my first time spending time down island and meeting the island, real islanders. Not that anyone else here is not a real islander, but I mean people who were here hardcore year-round, many of them born here. And a working class set of people that I didn't know from the island previously, because all my friends were vacationists. After the 4th day, I said, that's it. I'm going home. I'm selling all my shit. I'm moving to Martha's Vineyard to be an artist. And that was what I did. 2 weeks later, I was back here mid-May. The next day, I had a job and a place to stay by 11 in the morning, renting a room on a house that looked out, if you know where Offshore Ale is, the house they call the Carousel House. So I rented the upstairs room looking out on Ocean Park, and that was my first living experience here, $200 a month to live on Ocean Park. And it was wonderful.
Still live downstairs?
He had just gone into the hospital actually at that point and passed just before I came back. But Mrs. Brown was still there and lived there through '87. So I lived with Mrs. Brown basically. And she would take some winters off, so I would be in the house by myself through the winter, which was wonderful with the little bit of The Shining going on occasionally, but generally, you know, a great experience. But I worked painting houses. I came up to be a photographer. I worked painting houses, worked mostly with local guys, with the occasional travelers who were up for the summer, but it was a great experience. But what it allowed me to do also was to learn how to be an artist, because everyone's talking about the artist community here. And back then, we had folks like, there were 5 year-round theater companies working on the island, community theater. Mary Payne, Lee Fierro, people like that you got to know intimately and hang out with, you know. And these people were real artists, you know, for me, especially then, you know. And it was a great place to be, to learn what I couldn't learn just by myself, because the camera was really not a big challenge, and I had spent loads and loads of time reading books on the great European painters and had a bit of an eye already. So, you know, your eye is always developing. So that was ongoing, but learning how to be an artist from these people who had dedicated their lives to the arts was something that I got to do for the 15 years that I lived here then. But my time was out after 15 years, and I moved to California after that, and had tears when I left. But leaving allowed me and a lot of things to come together for me that allowed me to come back in this iteration and be a part-timer here, but have a gallery that is relatively successful, you know, and have a bit of fame and a little notoriety as well. And so leaving was actually a good thing in the long run and brought me back to do that. And as to joy, the image, I have a friend who is one of the Oak Bluffs Polar Bears, the group that is in it. So what they do is 4th of July through Labor Day, every morning, 7:30, they go in the water with all comers and exercise and celebrate life at Inkwell Beach. And they've been doing this for decades there. So it is very much an island tradition. So my friend was a member, and she kept telling me, you gotta come and photograph us doing this thing. And I'd never heard of them, even though I lived in Oak Bluffs for years. When you're here, you're in your realm of things you do. When I went to the beach, I went to Gay Head Beach because I could be natural there, you know. I didn't do Inkwell Beach there where you had to whatever. But
Wear a bathing suit.
yes. So one morning I went down and the water was flat and beautifully calm, and a few of them started to wade in, and as soon as I saw them wading in the water, I knew that this was not only photogenic, but very, very special in a lot of different ways, spiritually, culturally, socially, historically. I knew I had to dedicate a lot more time than just going down. So I've been photographing them since 2010 and creating a catalog of the people who were involved in this. One morning I had seen, it was probably the 4th time I went down, and I had seen what they do. So at the end, they do songs, chants, affirmations within it. They do one affirmation, the first line of which is, I am the source of my joy and infinite possibilities. And at the end of the affirmation, they all raise their arms. So I said, I need to create an image of that. So I went, and I am not one of the photographers who puts their camera on continuous and something is going to be good. I'm still very much old school. Even though I use a digital camera, I shoot in a very traditional manner of catching a particular moment. So they did it, they raised their arms, I shot 4 frames. I went home that evening and I looked at them and I said, okay, that's trash. That's okay, that's good, that one will sell a few photos. And that was joy. Actually, I said, it'll sell a few photos, people will like it. And little did I know that it would become what it was, you know.
Do you know what made it break through? I mean, that's the thing about being an artist.
Yes.
You have to do the work, and you never know which is the thing
Yes.
that will, if you're lucky,
Yes. Luck
sell,
had
as you
something.
said.
Luck had something to do with it.
Yeah.
People always ask, "Did you have an inkling?" And I said, "No, I didn't have the slightest inkling of what it would become." But I believe that it's universality. Everyone is portrayed in silhouette, so they can be any person.
Right.
The upraised arms of joy and rejoice and praise is universal. Hawaii, Japan, all over the world, people raise their arms in celebration. The water and the sacred circle. So all of those things are universal symbols that everyone recognizes. And I think that's what gives it its broad appeal. And it also speaks to the vineyard in the way that people tend, if they're going to buy a scenic photograph, to be very place orientated.
Right.
My favorite spot is Edgartown. My favorite spot is Lambert's Cove. It's Gay Head. But with this, it really expresses the joy of Martha's Vineyard in a way that is universal and not tied to place. It's about the human expression of that and not an expression of beauty in a place.
But it also really celebrates a community.
Yes.
On that beach.
It does.
That is safe for them.
It does.
And sacred, and it's really beautiful.
Thank you.
And lasts forever because of that.
Yes.
It's really, really incredible. We're gonna get back to all of these people because we have time, which is such a luxury today. And thank you for being here. Also, if you don't have time to stay the whole time, that's okay too. I just want everyone to know it's a Thursday, and a lot of people have lots of places. So thank you for spending so much of this time with us, Brad Silberling is a really, really successful director and producer and filmmaker, and has been coming to the Vineyard for a really long time. And there are little Easter eggs even in your work and like winks to Martha's Vineyard if you are someone who loves this island as much as everyone in this room here does. So he's also married to Amy Brenneman, a gorgeous actress, and the two of them are featured in the book together. Amy is rehearsing a play in Pasadena right now. Otherwise, I know she'd be right next to you and you guys could...
She'd be in front of me.
She'd be in front of you. Her curls might block out your sweet face, but I'm so thrilled that you're here, and I would love to hear sort of how you first started coming and how it inspires your creativity as a filmmaker and a television maker.
Well, it's still a little emotional for me. I lost my squirrel, Chester.
I lost a beautiful bird, like an ornate bird cage. That's so strange.
Yeah, that happened. I never knew.
That is a very good callback, by the way.
Telling you, bring it back, bring it full circle. So here's my arm here stood up. So I should have been here in 1974. I got here for the first time in 1976 because I had family at that point, New Hampshire, a grandmother, and I said, for my birthday, please take me to this place, Martha's Vineyard. Because in the summer of 1974, Jaws was made here. Mm-hmm. And I, as an 11-year-old, went to see the film on opening day, first screening. Nobody could tell me a thing, no spoilers.
So you were that kid.
I was that kid.
Yes.
And I had, my father had been a producer of documentary films and then had moved into network television as an executive. So this was just me as young audience wanting to go see this film. He dropped me off on the way to work. I went to see this film, and by the time it was done, first of all, halfway in, I didn't know if I was going to stay. I was so flipped out. But by the time it was done, I said, okay, who did that to me, and who has that job? I had such a concrete sense of a storyteller taking me through an experience. And I became very I stole my dad's Super 8 camera that night out of his closet and started to make films. And so, but I just wanted to go to Mecca. I wanted to find where was that film in this place. And so I came here in the summer of '76 because the film had come out in '75, and that was when all the big blue buses were going around the island. And I was only here for the day, and I got on to one of the buses, and the great thing was just about anybody who wasn't otherwise hanging out at a camp had been an extra. So everybody knew everything. And so I sat up by the driver, he pointed out every last location. And in the process, I saw the island. And I'm a kid from Los Angeles. And the Pacific is beautiful, but the topography doesn't know from this topography. And so I was very bewitched. And so over the next few years, I would, again, reach out. I had a great aunt who was alone, and I said, can you take me to the island for a few days? It was like, I remember, and so I worked backwards. I had a little Super 8 camera, and I started making these silent shorts, but I never got my hands on an actual beautiful still camera for about 4 years, until about 4 years later. So when I was 15, I came to the island. Again, family member, can you bring me to Martha's Vineyard? So I was here for 4 days. My father loaned me, because he wised up and hid all the rest of his good stuff, but he loaned me his still camera, and I had a muscle get released here. I came in between the light and between the topography. When I put that lens to my eye, single reflex camera, I just saw storytelling. And I had been, again, running around with a Super 8 camera, but I didn't realize that my eye would really open finally. And it wasn't just because I had a camera, it was because it was here. And I went to these key locations for me, just of light and textures and certain docks at certain moments in Edgartown Harbor and running here and there. And so it's always had this resonance for me. When I rented throughout graduate school, and when I got out of school, I met my wife at work. I really hoped that she liked this island. If not, it was going to be a deal breaker. And fortunately she did. She already had her own relationship with it. She was from Connecticut. And so we rented until we bought our first home up here in Chilmark in 2000, right before our first child was born. And that fall, God, was it fall? Yeah, it was the fall of 2001. I had made a film that I shot in the North Shore up in Gloucester and Marblehead, a film called Moonlight Mile. And that was the other crazy thing. I bought my home here, and I bought our home, and I met this young kid, then 19, in LA when I was trying to cast the lead, who was a version of myself. It was a very autobiographical film. And that was Jake Gyllenhaal. Jake came and sat with me, and we discovered that the home I had just bought was right next to his parents' home. And he had grown up coming here. So we made the film up in the North Shore, but I had an opening image that I needed to get, and I knew where I was going to do it. And that was, it was an opening image of the movie. It's a dream of his where he's supposed to be deeply in grief, but in the dream he's walking on water in a funeral suit and doesn't realize that he's not in the water. And that moment completely spins him out. And then he wakes up. So I got a camera package, found a local camera, a motion picture camera assistant from Boston. We went out at sunrise to State Beach, which again for me, with its surface and with its light, was going to be my own callback to Jaws, but also just an image. Go out just to shoot an image. And as we're ready to roll, it's so funny talking about people who go and have their water ritual. We're rolling, and all of a sudden, from camera left, this perfect swimming figure in silhouette going right, I couldn't have choreographed it better. Going right, and I'm hitting the camera assistant saying, are you rolling, are you rolling? He's like, yeah. And it was the most stunning thing. I don't know who that person is. They're in my movie. They're in the opening of this film, and I always thought, God, if this person finds out and they don't like it, I'm in trouble. But
We're striking, so that person can
yeah,
have
exactly.
residuals
Now
for that. Yeah, exactly.
So that was just one of those things, and so I love that for me had great meaning, and I spend a lot of my time writing when I'm here out in the parking lot in Menemsha by the Texaco. I'm sort of banal tastes, and so I know it's funny, it's been removed for the summer, but there's a little picnic bench right there behind the Texaco. I just love that spot. And the buoy there, to your point, yeah, I have sort of managed to sneak the sound I recorded of the buoy in every film. Sometimes playing itself, meaning as a buoy, or and other times just buried in the thing, yeah.
Okay. Julie, thank you for being here. Thank you for all you do for this community and for feeding us and really creating a sacred space for us to come together and teaching us to share our toppings. That does not come easily to everybody. They want what they brought for the pizza, and you have encouraged them to maybe try something they weren't expecting.
It's, something we teach our children all the time.
Exactly. All right, well, Julie's going to go
I wanted to
thank you.
thank you both for coming to Aquinnah and for me to even be here for a small bit of time, helping celebrate the yard tonight, and I have to go feed 200 people.
I also just want to say about Julie before she runs out, that she learned how to be who she is from people that came before her. And her mother, Anne Vanderhoop, was also a mentor to me when I worked at the Aquinnah shop as a very young teenager for several summers, and she taught me everything I needed to know about business. Watching her work, the hardest working person I know, now I can say that about you.
Thank you.
So have a fabulous night tonight. Thank you for
It's a
taking the time to
generational
come
thing. Thank
over
you
and
guys
to
so much. It's so
participate.
nice to sit here and see you guys instead of the book.
If you've seen the book, you know that the images are so breathtaking and really feel like, I don't know, in film we call it cinema verite, but in photography, is it called photography verite? What is it that it felt like we were in someone's space in such an intimate way? It felt completely the opposite of posed. It really felt like we got to eat what they were eating, breathe the air they were breathing, and intimately watch them during their process. So so Elizabeth Cecil, she is, and Cecil? Cecil. Oh, it's right, okay. Is an editorial and commercial photographer, and she specializes in food and lifestyle and travel. You've also been a teacher here on the island, sort of helping pay it forward in that way. But talk a little bit about how you somehow magically created these stories in every chapter where we felt like guests in the home or the studio of these incredible creatives.
Well, I think that's partially because of the subjects were so willing to let me come into their homes and their studios, their private spaces, and just kind of work with them and be with them. And I think having that openness is half the battle, just creating authentic images, which is always what I try to do. And Tamara had a really specific vision, and I feel like listening to oftentimes Tamara and Amanda were interviewing while I was taking pictures.
Oh.
So not of the subjects, but of their space and the details, books and palettes and all kinds of things. And so I got to kind of like listen while I was working, which was kind of a unique experience. I don't usually do that. I'm usually working alone. So it was kind of nice because I got to hear everybody's stories, but in a, I don't know, it was like I was like listening to a tape kind of. Because to their experiences and listening to their stories, and then getting to see all of their stuff and like what they make. So that was kind of a unique experience, and I think it ended up working really well for us, and we got into like a really great rhythm, and I was able to do then portraits either before or after, which I was like just want them to feel natural and relaxed, and I think I do an okay job with people with that, and usually people feel pretty comfortable, or I hope so. And so I don't know, I was really fortunate to just have a really great creative group to work with, and some people had really fun ideas. I don't know, Elliot had like some fun, wacky ideas that I loved. Like, he was really fun to collaborate with. And
as a composer, can you share with us what you were thinking about?
He
got down
on the floor with his music sheets, and he was just like very animated and fun, and he would think about, what about this kind of shot? And I thought it was so fun, and so we just had a really good time, and it was just coincidentally, I think, one of our last shoots, and I lost my voice, and I couldn't really even direct that well, so it was just really fun, and everybody was just so different and lovely, and some people I knew, some people I didn't, so it was nice to work with people that I've worked with before, but then also get to have new relationships and meet people. And I think what I love about being here is the community. And I've been here, this is my 20th year here, so I feel so lucky to be here and to have artists to bounce ideas off of and work with and collaborate. And you don't get that everywhere. It just doesn't exist in a lot of places, and we're very lucky.
Brooke, can I ask you a question? You and Tamara are old friends. You've probably collaborated on other things over your lifetime. How did Tamara and Amanda, how did they present this to you? What did you think it was going to be? What surprised you when you saw the book?
I was just, thrilled that Tamara wanted me in it.
How did she describe it to you, if you recall?
She said, I don't want it to be, a boring book about people's houses and their lifestyle here. And I know Tamara, so I knew it was going to be getting down in the gritty truth of it all.
No, the truth is that Brooke just says yes to everything.
Don't tell them that.
I mean, I just went to the Playhouse 3 or 4 nights ago, and Brooke loaned herself after probably spending many days not on the beach, but not in your studio, rehearsing. She did a reading. And if you know Brooke, you know that she is a yes person. And if there's benefit, if there's this or that, just call Brooke and she will participate. So it wasn't really challenging to have her be in, and I really wanted to show her paintings because people know Brooke as an actress, first and foremost, but she's an incredibly talented artist as a painter as well. So that was a no-brainer.
She's the
But
best.
I agree with you. I was in the same boat. She asked me, and I just said, yeah, I'll definitely do it.
Yeah.
I think we had a quick meeting at 7A.
Had a coffee.
My husband and my daughter came up on the bike, riding the bike, and said hi to us. And she just, Amanda, and I think we both had some books, and showed me some examples, asked me to do a quick treatment, and then that was it. It was done.
Also, if you haven't seen it, just another incredible celebration of this island. Brooke and her sister did this incredible, is it called a web series?
Yeah.
First of all, they're brilliant together, and the premise, I don't want to spoil anything, the premise is fantastic. My sister is here tonight, and so if you have a sister, if you know a sister, if you've ever seen sisters on the planet, you understand their dynamic is unique and special and really unlike any other. The two of you, and also you employ in this project so many Vineyard people. There are lots of cameos of people you know and love. It's actually fantastic. It's still found wherever you watch content on YouTube, or there's a channel for it.
Yeah.
but
All
also-
downhill from here.
Yes, because it is all downhill from here. That's how I'm going to feel after today, after this panel disassembles. But there's something also incredibly fun. The way, if you know the vineyard, you see like a moment of it in your films. If you know the vineyard, the fun. A, we get to see a little of their beautiful house, by the way. But B, you get to see so many magical places on the island.
Tamara and Midnight Farm.
Yes, tomorrow
And
Midnight
acting
Farm.
debut.
That's right. That's
I just
right.
walked in and I looked at the script and I said, I'm definitely not going to say any of those things. Just do whatever you want.
Well, it's
Talking
fantastic.
So good.
It is, but it really captures a time on this island as well. So
I
it
wanted
really,
to capture the cost of the island.
Yeah.
And so I have one scene where I go into alleys and I buy a bottle of aspirin and a chocolate bar and something else, I don't remember what, very small, $65.
and that was years ago, so now it's $6,500, but it's worth it. It's worth it because it keeps alleys open. Tamara, I mentioned it at the beginning, and by the way, of course, we're going to invite all of you to ask questions of this extraordinary panel. I first came to this island originally because Alexandra Styron is my best friend. We were roommates together forever in LA, and I first came here with her family and I didn't even know what went on up here. Like, there's so much to do down island. It's a very social family, and it was incredible to sort of meet any incredible book I'd ever read. Suddenly, that author would be at the table that night, and other really impressive people on the planet. But I got to meet one of her best friends right away, you, in your store. By the way, Carly Simon was also there, and it was very heady for a girl from Teaneck, speaking of Leonia. But I think back, anything that I bought at that store, whether it be a poncho, a pair of shoes, and by the way, these were really big deals for me as a young artist to purchase at your store. And I remember thinking, but this will last. And by the way, 25 years later, every single thing I got at your store has lasted. And now my daughter wears. Like, that's how old I am and how beautifully made your items in that store were. But the sale, like when there was a sale, that was a really exciting thing.
Are we getting a little sidetracked?
No, because you're an artist too. You're not just a connector. Your eye, your aesthetic, and all of that. When I was looking through this book, it really felt like Midnight Farm to me. Beautiful, beautiful, hand-curated moments, and incredible people who have the integrity and the values that are so important to you, not just as artists, but as human beings. So thank you, because that was my entree to this place.
And the store was really, because I had it for so long, it was the place that I met so many people that are in the book.
Yeah.
My community of people that live here. So that was really an important place for me to feel part of this community as a year-round person when I moved here with my kids when they were little.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if you look at the book, Gogo Ferguson, who's one of the most beautiful jewelry makers, in some ways she tries at her home, you know, the way Julie does it with Orange Peel, like to have a place where artists can come together and perform for each other, just because they love doing what they do. And so I wonder, as all year round people, and when you talk about sort of what it is to be here in the shining season of the vineyard, where are the places? And then we're going to get to what your favorite magical places are that you don't really want to share because you want them to stay secret, but also you have to share because they're so glorious.
And they're in the book.
They're in the book.
It's too late.
It's too late, but maybe they have others. What is the sort of, where is that space? Where is the meeting place? Where is the gathering place for all year long residents who want to commune with each other off season?
There are so many places. I mean, there's Featherstone. There are galleries that are open all year. Michael runs a photography lecture, correct? At Featherstone.
Salon, yes.
Cara Taylor has a show there right now with artists from South Africa where she lives in the winter. There are galleries, but I would say for me personally, it's people's homes. It's sitting around the fire. It's potlucks. It's bringing food over to somebody's house. I think there's a lot of that here.
Yeah, I have a photography group that I started just with a bunch of friends that are colleagues, and I just wanted to have, I don't know, conversations and community photo-based so that we could help each other out if somebody needs a job they can't do or a piece of equipment or just wants feedback on a project. And so we had started it originally and met at my house, and then when COVID hit, we decided to just meet outside. So we just had a bonfire, and then everyone's sitting around and we chit-chat and meet. And so we try to do that a few times a year.
And the film festival too. I mean, there's a March film festival at Brooke's husband Tony just loaned himself, because he also says yes to everything, as a special night to raise money for the film festival that is in March. It's all of us who live here and are here in March. And in the summer, it's running all the time now as well. But
people come to it.
People come from off island. So there are so many places on this 21-mile long island. Just adding that extra mile, although with the climate situation, it might be down to 20 miles. I don't know if anybody knows.
Right.
It's 21 by 17 the last time I checked. Somebody here probably knows better than I do, but there's a lot going on here. And people, when, I'm sure this happens to you, I mean, if you meet somebody in February and you're off island and they ask you where you live and you say you live here, they're just all the time, live there, like all the time. And it's like, don't tell anybody, because it's pretty fabulous to be here. And
I feel like it gives you time to recharge and to connect with people that you don't have time to maybe connect with in the season. If you're full-time here working, you're making a lot of your jobs, a lot of your money is during the summer. So this winter time gives us time to
trespass,
to connect with each other, go for walks,
and hike, and walk, and get outside all the time, which you might not do if you were in the city.
Michael, maybe I'll ask you, I think a lot about the title you chose for this book. I know I have a 19-year-old daughter, and I'm still on certain days like, should it have been Georgia? Because Ava's really nice too. Like, naming is a really hard thing, children especially, but anything that you have to name. So I love Vineyard Folk. I think you came up with the perfect title. But Michael, I guess I want to ask you, what does Vineyard Folk mean to you when you hear that title, that phrase?
I think it encapsulates a feeling that I've always felt when I was especially when I was a year-rounder here. So I'd been here about a year, and I was in the VFW in Oak Bluffs for some reason or another. I can't remember why. I had to meet with someone. So there's a man sitting down at the middle of the bar nursing his beer. And he looks over and he says, "Oh, it's you." I'm like, "Yeah, it's me." "What?" And he says, "You're that guy. Every time I see you on the road and I wave, you don't wave back." I'm like, well, and I'm from, New York and kind of fresh out here still. And I said, "Well, I don't really know you." And he said, "What does that have to do with it?" And I said, "Bam, you're right. What does that have to do with it?" And for me, that's what Vineyard Folk is.
Yeah.
It was smile and wave.
Yeah.
We're here. We're all here. Hey.
I love
just
that.
speaking to people that you didn't really, you recognized their car.
Yeah.
But we were still here, so that.
Yeah.
That encapsulates it, what Vineyard Folk is.
We're all going to take that with us today. That's beautiful. I want to open up the floor to questions from the audience if you have any. And I'm just going to actually just move over because it feels weird to have this empty space between an actress I admire so much and me. So I'm going to sit next to you. And I'm sitting next to Brooke Adams right now, you guys. So I just want to take a moment and open it up to you guys as we begin to come to a close. I also want you to know that there are books right there, so if you don't already have one, I'm sure these artists will be happy to sign. I'm speaking for you.
Yes,
You'll be
fine.
happy to sign. So does anyone here have an audience? Does anyone here have an audience? Does anyone here have a question for this beautiful panel?
Brad, I was a swimmer.
Questions or comments? Yes.
Left myself open for that. Can I also just, off of that beautiful answer, here's what you can't imagine. Hamptons folk wouldn't work.
Right.
Wouldn't work.
It's an oxymoron.
Oxymoron.
Yeah.
No, I was literally thinking
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
It doesn't allow itself. Tamara and I have a friend who last summer rented in the Hamptons and came running back to the Vineyard this year. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. I mean, you could, there are pockets,
Yes.
but I think as a
No, no.
concept,
Yes.
I agree. But there's Teaneck folk. I know some of us are here tonight. Anybody else?
Hi, I just have a comment. I want to thank you for breaking the stereotype that island artists and general artists are all very wealthy, up-island, generational landowners. Because I know that the wealth of the island isn't in the dollars and cents of it, as much as it's becoming that, and I just loved, was surprised when I started reading the book that you really worked hard to bring a balance to that. So that's what I wanted to say.
I think it was so important to Tamara and Amanda to highlight
The next
the next generation and
How to keep them.
Yeah, and the housing crisis that we're really having, and I feel like you did such a great job. And it was, I said to her on numerous occasions, I would never want to be you having to pick who goes in the book because it was so hard. There's so many talented people and so many different. It was really about creative, so not just art, traditional artists. When you think about it.
Poets and writers, yeah.
Creative. It's so many different people that can, from curators to
Krishana
to
Collins,
flower
farmers.
Yeah, so it's really the span of people that you included, and you really did labor. I saw it. She labored over who was going to, how can I fit more people in, So.
Well, that's volume 2.
Yes. Hopefully.
Yeah. All right, well, maybe, unless somebody else has a question or a comment, and they're here afterwards signing, so if something comes to you that you want to ask privately, that's okay too.
I want to thank Matthew from Edgartown Bookstore for making the drive up here to sell books. So he's been so wonderful, popping up at various different events. And also, this is our last hurrah for this book for the summer. Elizabeth and I have been working pretty much nonstop since the book came out, and we're so appreciative of the very, very warm response from the Vineyard, and really appreciative of the people that gave of themselves and their time to be in this book. It is a very intimate book, and we wanted it to feel like you were with our friends here. So everybody gets a thank you. A lot of gratitude.
I want to just close out.
For you too, by the way.
Oh, it's my honor. Yeah, we've been
Thank
wanting
you
to
for
do
doing this.
something together for a long time, and this is just the beginning. But I do want to close out with all of you sharing, what is your sacred space? What is the place that you go to? Tamara used the phrase tune in or tune out, and I just love that. It's so Tamara, but I do feel like we all have those places that can do both of those things for us, when we need to rest and when we need inspiration. So maybe we'll just go down the line, and it can be the one in the book, or maybe it's something different. But where is sort of a place that you know you'll breathe deeply?
Well, we have a kind of a ritual at this point of going to Lambert's Cove in the morning, because the dogs are allowed there before 10.
Right.
So that's become a very, very special place. I've gotten to know all these people there with their dogs, and it's lovely. I have the same thing in New York City, right in the park, and it's really a lovely thing. My studio, where I go and can just stay all day, I love. And Menemsha, something about Menemsha just kills me, always has.
Yeah.
Just the whole island is so beautiful.
I know, it's cruel to make you even begin to choose, but Michael?
My gallery space is definitely the center of my life at this point. It was bequeathed to me by Claudia and Richard Lee, who I had known from the 80s. So Richard was the last person to use it as his space, as a gallery space, selling his paintings from the back of glass that brought people so much joy, and a lot of people, oh my gosh, did he really paint that? His beautiful work. So I've been able, this is my 12th season there, and I'm behind Claudia Jewelry, 34A Main Street. Over the years, I've created a beautiful garden back there and a great patio space, and it's just, it's an expression of myself in a lot of ways, and people come and they really feel, they come back and they say, wow, I really feel comfortable here. This is really a very Zen sort of space, so, and when I'm gone, for the 7 months that I'm gone, I miss it with every fiber of my being, and can't wait, even though I hate to rush time, to be back for the next season and to be there in that space again.
Beautiful.
I think I do come back to the one in the book. I too love Menemsha, and I think I love where I like to sit, because it's the quotidian and the most breathtaking, like wonderfully met. I like sitting in the parking lot. I really do, because you have such an incredible sweep ahead of you, but then you get the kind of awesome little bit of fumes from behind you of daily life, and the real folks who have to come in and fill up the truck.
Yeah.
And I don't eat lobster, I don't eat oysters, it's wasted on me, but I'm so happy there, because I know somebody's really enjoying it, which is great.
And you're actually creative there.
Yeah.
You've written screenplays there.
Yeah, it's really, especially off season, it's just like, and there's always usually a good stiff breeze, and it's chilly, and it's great. So that's often what I come back to.
Mine is my favorite surf spot that shall remain nameless. But it's looking at the island from the water and being in the water, and just feeling, I don't know, it's such a special experience to be in the water and get on a wave and look at this beautiful place that I live, and the cliffs and the sand and the sky. It just always recharges me.
You said cliffs.
Well, there are many cliffs. Not the big cliffs.
Tamara, I think like Elizabeth, I am not good at sitting still like Brad is, or you are in your studio. I like to be in motion, walking, and particularly also off-season, and I really love the walk that makes me exhale every time. I never get tired of it, ever, 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 and it's from my parents' house which is on Lighthouse Road. They've been coming here for 68 years. They're right there. Walking from down the steps from their house all the way around the cliffs and then all the way back. So Aquinnah, be still my heart, right here. Formerly known as GH.
Before we close out, does anyone want to share what their favorite, sort of to continue as a community, where your place is? Would anyone be willing to share?
I can't believe I'm going to say this because I cherish nature. I'm in the water every day. And I think the strong sense of community I have after coming here for over 60-something years is that I love the porch. Everyone just stops. Life is happening and the social everything. But I love all the beauty, but the water and the porch.
Right. Me too. Anybody else willing to share their favorite spot?
George, what about you?
Okay, thank you. My favorite spot is, so I live in Chilmark, on Lower Chilmark Pond, in a 1930s fishing camp that's sort of, out over the water on beams and pilings, and I've got a deck that faces 3 small islands. So my favorite spot is, could be sunrise, could be sunset, could be looking at the stars. Then also, it's a place where I love to have people over. So, including a number of people who are sitting at the table up there. Had one such night last night, which is, I'm sort of surprised to find myself here today. Well, there's a couple of people on that panel also. But anyway, so my back deck is my favorite spot.
What about Sonia, our fabulous library person from the Aquinnah Library? Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Where's your spot?
I have so many favorite spots that I've been trying to think which one to pick. But honestly, I love going to the dog park in Oak Bluffs. And I don't know why, it just gives me so much peace. But also just walking the East Chalk with my dog and looking out over the water and the horizon, there's something about the angle at which you see the ocean that is just so magical. And I remember being on a sailboat once this summer looking at the East Chalk, and I was like, oh, I wish I was on the East Chalk and not on the sailboat. So that kind of confirmed it for me. But yeah, I'm so happy that everybody came here today. And you know, it's late August, it was a beautiful afternoon. It's so tempting to spend time in all of these beautiful locations, but I think what makes the island is so special is not just the landscape and the water and the woods, but it's the people who are here, and that's exactly what we're here kind of enjoying. So thank you so much all for coming.
Yeah, thank you. Your library is one of my favorite places on this island. And so thank you all for being here. This has been the Little Known Facts podcast, and we're all a part of it. Thank you to all of you, and thank you for your book, truly.
Thank you so much.
You're
and
so
it's
welcome.
Called Little Known Facts.
Yeah.
If you want to walk and listen to something really fun and creative, it's her podcast, which is you probably 500 people. I mean, how many?
We're close. We're
Yeah.
like at about 370 episodes. So there's something for everyone, but I can't wait for this to be a part of it too. Anyway, thank you all for being here today. The books are over there, and you can meet the artists. Thank you, thank you.